and communications in ministers' offices to determine just how governments arrive at a decision. What's changing here?
I was wondering why I wasn't getting much responses in the SandBox. It's because I forgot to hit the fucking go live button, and I've been at this for an hour and a half. I thought some people were responding to me because they were actually putting things into the SandBox. So how about I just do a little thing right now where I say, so I have a cold. In my own defense, I have a cold, and I was streaming, and I was doing a really good stream. But you see, I was aware that I was doing it on an odd night at an odd time. And so I wasn't expecting, you know, my SandBox to be flooded with people and stuff of that sort. And it turned out that in my cold brain fog here, I forgot to hit the go live button. For a good old hour and a half, I've been talking to myself. And I've already gone over an entire docket talking about shit Doug Ford is up to that I think is very important stuff for you all to hear. And so this part that I am now posting as a video is the entire segment, the entire part that I did not go stream live with. And for those of you who are just watching now, this will seem like a very, very short live stream to you. So thank you, everyone, for tolerating my absolute brain fogginess going on here with this cold. I don't know why I didn't do the second checks that I normally do, other than, you know, maybe ADHD is wrecking my brain, and I was doing a whole bunch of other projects and stuff today. Yeah. So, enjoy the first hour and fucking half I did talking to myself. Oh God, this is embarrassing. But yeah. Do, theme song. Do, I'm broke, so this is my theme song. Do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Welcome everyone to this Tuesday evening, afternoon. I'm checking my Yeti bar on my OBS is going like this. You know, the little green thing is moving around, letting me know that audio is working. But please, in the SandBox, if you could give me a thumbs up for video and audio, I would super appreciate it because, you know, the few times I don't ask, there are issues. So far in the SandBox, we have Real John Litham, Big Jerry, Hermeteorologist, and Bobby. Welcome to this not normal streaming time. And Big Jerry says this stream will be great. Why, thank you. I really do appreciate the positivity. I'm still under the weather, still might get into a coughing fit. I'll probably, if I wake up tonight with a whole bunch of coughing fits like I have the past few nights, I'll probably call the doctor tomorrow and see if I I've had to get an inhaler before after a cold just to clear out everything in my lungs. So that might be the case, but my voice sounds still a little bit low and gravelly compared to what it normally is. So if you like that, then this is the stream for you. But yeah, I'm trying to get caught up with the mountain of news that I missed because I was very, very sick. And I was telling everyone on Sunday that this would be starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, but I'm like, you know what? I have everything ready. I'd rather get done sooner than later because I just realized that tonight's going to be a busy night online there's midterms elections that a lot of our leftist channels will probably be covering and stuff. Also, Rachel Gilmore tends to do a live stream Tuesday nights, so it's, yeah, we'll just hammer through everything because it's going to be a busy night for leftist content, which also means I will probably be able to raid someone at the end of this, which is good. Still hoping to get a thumbs up for the video and audio here. Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to actually raid another channel because that's a good way to get a shout out to my channel. But yeah, there was some shenanigans that Doug Ford was up to that I wanted to cover. I know sometimes it's repetitive, but every time I cover subjects that, even though they're kind of on the same thing as I've talked about before, it's usually because there's an escalation in it. But also there's one particular story that it's like, oh, okay, this is, yeah, he's just totally trying to absolutely hide something that must be devastating because he is literally writing laws to protect himself. And you would never guess who's at fault. It's definitely not him. Nope, 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 no. He's blamed someone. So yes, it's mostly about Doug Ford. I have 2 dockets of Doug Ford. One is, you know, a multitude of short stories that I have put together. And then one docket is all about the one story, the Freedom of Information, FOI, and what he's planning on doing with it, as in eliminating it for himself and his cabinet, because then we can't search records and get information to find out that maybe there's some fraud and scams going on. And it would be retroactive. So I know Global News has been battling him for years at this point, trying to get his cell phone records because he loves to do government business on his private cell phone. And he's been very reluctant to release those records. But probably because we'd find out about all the backroom deals he's making and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, that's, to me, is a very important big story to cover. So that has its own docket. And then just more escalating in the UK and the US when it comes to trying to eliminate trans people from existing. So not exactly like an uplifting stream, but they're important. The news I cover, very important, because it's best to get informed and get involved. I was able to do a tiny bit of work on my TYT essay today too, so I feel good about that. Made it to the gym yesterday. Didn't have any coughing fits there, so that was good. I'll probably end up going back tomorrow because I miss the routine that I had just started to establish for 2 weeks before this cold hit me. And so I want to get back to the gym. I want to get some muscle. Yeah. So yeah, a lot on the go. And the sooner I get my TYT essay done, the sooner I get back to my book. That's an escape I want to get to, in the worst way. I live in that world. I want to get there so much. So I'm looking forward to it. But let's see, how are we for viewership? I know it's probably not going to be that great today. Looks like 4 people are watching, so thank you to all 4 of you. You're the best. Don't tell anyone else. Yeah, this is not my regular time, and there's lots of other leftist stuff going on tonight, so it probably won't be the greatest of viewerships, but that's fine. The information I'm presenting will be available to anyone who then stumbles across this and finds this sort of thing important, because I definitely find it important. And if I had the energy to do clipping of segments, that would probably be beneficial, but I'll get there. Once I'm done the TYT essay, then the focus is on my channels, plural. And getting them up and more content and clipping and all of that sort of stuff. I worry. I probably come across as much more confident on this channel than I actually feel when it comes to what I do. But, you know, one day, there will be something there, you know? It's going to take a while, you know? It's like winning a lottery, but in order to win, you got to keep on playing. That's a gambling thing. Don't do it. Don't gamble. But, you know, someday I think it'll be, the message will get out there. The progressive message. And I know I would have done my part to help make that happen. And, you know, it's just trying to find positive, progressive change for everyone. Make the world a little bit better for everyone. That's the goal. Okay, well, why don't we just get into it so that people who are coming into the stream late can get caught up on, as opposed to me keep on stalling. And hopefully as we go on through the night, more people will hop in. But I'm hoping to have this be a shorter live stream, you know, something like 3 hours long, so that I can rest. I'm tired and I need to rest, and watch a couple episodes of Supernatural to help unwind, because I'm rewatching that entire series, and that's like a couple months. That's a couple months project, because something like 15 seasons and over 20 episodes per season probably. So yeah, that one's going to take a while. Anyway, yeah, so Doug Ford, Ontario's premier, real piece of shit. He's been up to so many scandals and frauds. It is mind-boggling how corrupt this government is. And yet, to this date, he's actually faced zero consequence. Nothing has happened to him for the outright blatant corruption he is doing. He is just like ripping apart Ontario and selling it off and destroying it. And, you know, all the landmarks that we used to enjoy, tourist attractions are all being taken away. He is decimating education and healthcare, making just the life of the average person in Ontario so much worse. Yet, you wouldn't know it just walking around, you know? Like, people are so unplugged from politics until it directly affects them. And unfortunately for a lot of these people, it's going to directly affect them when their kids aren't getting the education they want, or they try going to get the medical care that they need and it's not available. So there's extreme things like that. Also, you know, the shutting down the supervised consumption sites. So, you know, that leads to people dying when they didn't have to. But it's the level of what he is up to. It's like cartoon evil. It's cartoon evil. You know, like in the Simpsons when, what's his name? The rich bad guy. Well, all rich people tend to be bad, but, you know, Burns, is it Mr. Burns? When he like blocks out the sun, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah, so Doug Ford is just getting to cartoon levels of evil at this point. Because, what's he gonna do now? Well, he's upset with the convention center not being up to snuff for him. Even though Toronto has a pretty big, massive convention center that is quite usable, and you could always just doll up the one that we have. But he wants to make a new one because, you know, having 3 million square feet somewhere in Toronto, easy to find. Well, it's not actually. So, his solution. You know that song, you know, Pave Paradise, Put Up a Parking Lot? Well, now it's pave over part of Lake Ontario and put up a convention center. Yeah, he wants to fill in part of the lake to make this happen. Sure. It sounds evil. It is. So let's see. There we go. So this is from Tina Yazdani from City News, saying, new Premier Ford confirms he wants to fill parts of Lake Ontario to create land for a new convention centre, arguing it will attract tourists and jobs to Toronto. Critics call him out of touch. He says money doesn't grow on trees and wants to spend billions on a fantasy island. Yes, because, it's not like education and healthcare isn't being absolutely starved for funds and could use it. No. We're just going to drop billions, I say, on filling in part of the Lake Ontario, and putting up a convention center that is absolutely, completely not needed.
Artificial land or even an artificial island in Lake Ontario so the Premier's new idea involves building some kind of artificial land or even an artificial island in Lake Ontario to accommodate his idea for a massive multi-billion-dollar new convention centre. You may remember earlier this week he made comments about the Metro Toronto Convention Centre, calling it too small and outdated. He says Ontario, and Toronto specifically, is missing out on opportunities to host conventions here. Now, of course, not a ton of space in Toronto for something that is 2 million square feet. So this new...
Sorry, I was wrong. It wasn't 3 million square feet, just 2 million square feet. My bad.
Land the Premier is looking to create will require millions of tons of fill, potentially somewhere between Humber Bay Park and Ontario Place. Keep in mind the bulk of Ontario Place is currently on fill. The Premier today mentioned the Mayor actually endorses the plan. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I wouldn't call it an island, but we may look at putting fill in.
Ford Island. I think there's some disturbing undertones there when a rich person just talks about making an island these days.
Until we can put a convention center, we're losing out on so many large conventions in the world because we just don't have the size.
Metro Toronto Convention Center is big enough. Like, what kind of fucking conventions are you talking about here that we can't accommodate at this point?
And it's a dated convention, but we're exploring that. It's no different than anything else. The environmental process would move forward, but we have a tremendous amount of fill right now, and we need to expand the land. And I did talk to the mayor about it, and she was endorsing it. So because we need more land, we need a world-class convention center to attract more tourists, more jobs, and that's what this is all about.
The Premier says money doesn't grow on trees.
Convention centers, it's the idea that it's going to bring in tourists, not so much. Like, again, we already have massive conventions happening, like Comic-Con and whatnot. The idea of just making a new one, a new convention center for no reason that will cost billions, it is out of touch. It's out of touch with the needs of Ontarians. Nobody is asking for this. No one. We're doing just fine without it. We don't need it.
And he's telling young people that, and he's going to make them live a life of debt just to go to college or university. And so while he's pulling the rug out from under them, he wants to spend billions of dollars on some kind of fantasy island. Again, I think it just shows how out of touch the Premier is with where people are at right now under his government.
And keep in mind, we don't have a final price tag yet. There hasn't even been an official announcement.
And whenever there is a final price tag, that's never the final price tag, because with any sort of project like this, the costs go up because unforeseen things happen. They have to do extra surveys, or the materials cost more because of whatever blank reason in supply chain, whatnot. But I have yet to hear of any infrastructure project that was done just spot on projection. The first numbers that we heard, that's what it was. It's usually a lot more than the first numbers we hear. And the first numbers we're hearing here are a couple $2 billion.
On this yet, but the Premier has speculated it will be a few $1 billion.
Okay, again, a little wrong. Few billion.
All right, an interesting proposal here. Tina Yazdani at Queen's Park with the details. Thank you, Tina.
Now, why, oh why, might Doug Ford be interested in this right now? I don't know. Maybe. There's this from Doug Ford. I had the chance to speak at the Ontario Sandstone and Gravel Conference today about our $223 billion infrastructure plan. As we build new roads, highways, hospitals, and homes, we're using Ontario inputs wherever we can so Ontario tax dollars support Ontario workers. That just seems like a huge coincidence that last month he's doing this at, corporations that could greatly benefit from infilling part of Lake Ontario. As TDOT resident points out, just saying, gee, I wonder what could have possibly told Doug Ford to fill in the lake. And somebody else saying, where the fuck do we have $223 billion floating around? That corrupt fucker is intentionally bankrupting our province so he can privatize our healthcare and schools to pay for it. No one blows cash faster than a con. And that is true. And this, again, is probably part of the reason why he doesn't want people being able to do FOI requests, because there's probably some shady shit going on here. So I'm sure this isn't just a coincidence that, he has all these buddies here now, corporations that have probably helped out his it's tit for tat. It's always tit for tat with Doug Ford. Everything he does is to benefit the people who helped him get into power, his buddies, himself. I have yet to see him do anything that just actually really benefits the average Ontarian. Like, one could argue, well, he got rid of the license plate renewal fees and stuff and on. And it's like, that is like a very, very superficial benefit. Like a very drop in the bucket, momentary. But what that also leads to is far, far less money in the coffers that was going towards our healthcare and education and other things. So in the long run, for a lot of people, it will cost them more than what we were paying to renew our license plates. So here's Tina Yazdani also pushing back on Doug Ford. Certain reporters like Tina, who I cover a lot of, and Colin DeMello, who I cover a lot of, they seem to be getting really short with Doug Ford. Like, they've just kind of had it with all of his shenanigans and stuff. And here's Doug Ford being very Trumpian. And I know some people are like, oh, you shouldn't just say like Trumpian whenever a politician is acting up. But here he is just saying, the press is lying. The press is misleading you. You shouldn't believe the press because, they asked me a hard question that I don't like. Therefore, they're all lying. So this person just pointing out, we have been getting some excellent reporting from Tina Yazdani, and her questions today clearly upset the premier. You're misleading the people. It's all your responsibility as the media to tell the truth, is what he said. Well, let's listen to what he said.
Be in the classroom.
Hi.
Oh, so this is also something that I'm covering right now, that, education severely, severely underfunded in this province right now. And what he's going to do is give teachers a $750 credit card that they can use to buy needed school supplies, because that solves it. That solves the problem of like collapsing roofs and, not enough water or air conditioning and not enough teachers, not enough special education assistants, not enough special ed programs, like all of that, Here's a Band-Aid.
Premier Tina with City News.
Tina.
Premier, some of your ideas lately, for example, the convention center, the tunnel under the
Great
floor
ideas.
line, those are going to cost billions of dollars.
Great ideas.
And I know a lot of teachers, educators are wondering why there is money for those projects when classrooms aren't even getting their basic supplies like toilet paper and paper towels.
Let's address that. All the money comes, again, a foundation of our education and healthcare and infrastructure.
Now, For all you people, because I like you so much, I'm going to do this. I'm going to speed it up. I'm going to speed up the dialogue because we don't need to listen to him in normal speed.
Is the economy. We're spending $56 billion. We're losing $56 billion a year. That's the Toronto Board of Trade's numbers on congestion. Any educator, you're talking about educators, go on the 401 any time of the day. It's going to take them an hour to get across the city, which is unacceptable. So
how exactly does this little card here help educators get across the city?
there's two types of politicians, in my opinion. Ones that sit there and look day by day, budget by budget, which is important to look at budgets every year. And then there's visionaries that plan for 50 years down the road. And the reason why we're spending $30 billion in building new schools, because they want a nice, clean working environment. So we have the busiest highway in the entire North America, I'd say probably in the world, on the 401, and it's jam-packed right up. I drive by there at midnight, and it's bumper-to-bumper cars. So we need to get people and goods back and forth to their destination as quickly as possible. Let's talk about the convention center. So we're last place. We're last place in North America. So little cities like Baltimore are kicking our butts. We're number 24 to 25. We're losing millions of visitors every single year. We're losing billions of dollars of economic growth because our convention center, it sucks. Simple.
Okay, I'm just going to skip ahead a bit because he's just talking about the convention center there.
To have a convention here, and when they land here, the best marketing tool we have is them over in the water park, or they're at the beautiful science center that's going in there. And at nighttime, we're going to a concert at the RBC amphitheater. We're gonna have a beautiful amphitheater. We're gonna have 50 acres of trails, beaches. Like this is a no-brainer, folks. I'm a business guy, and I look at what is the ROI. And for years, the ROI is zero at the convention center, and it was a bunch of dandelions and weeds growing through Ontario Place that was left derelict for.
Sorry, just wanted to get that point in there.
Left derelict for 15 years, and people at the convention center, and it was a bunch of dandelions and weeds growing through Ontario Place that was left derelict for 15 years, and people.
So why was Ontario or the Science Center left derelict for 15 years when this government has been in charge for 8 years? You see, during that time, they could have been sprucing up the Science Center. Instead, they chose to leave it derelict. And then as soon as there was a convenient excuse, shut it down. Even though that convenient excuse is made up. It's a fantasy because the idea that the roof would collapse under a lot of snowfall, and we've seen a lot of snowfall in Toronto, and it didn't happen. Not to mention there's a lot of schools that have similar issues with their roofs, and he doesn't give a shit about that. Again, that $750 credit card he's given to teachers won't fix the roofs in schools. So the fact that the Science Center was left derelict, that's his fault. That's his fault. He did that. Him and his government did that.
My age, remember going to Ontario Place, hanging out in the summer. A whole generation missed that opportunity. We're bringing that opportunity back to the people of Ontario and around the world. We have the greatest people in the world, the greatest jurisdiction in Ontario, and the best city in the world in Toronto, and we have to make it the best. For too long, elected officials on the city and other places, they're okay with being in last place. I hate last place. I want to be number one in the world in everything we do, and we can do it. We have the tools. We have the ingenuity. We have the brightest, smartest people in the world, and we're going to get it done. We're building the largest transit system in North America. Just think of that. The largest transit system in North America is being built. We're building more roads and highways and bridges. So we're investing into hospitals, 50 new sites, $60 billion. I could sit here and rattle them off all day, but we're going to be number one. I'm tired of being last place with the greatest jurisdiction in the world.
Respectfully, Premier, the parents and teachers wouldn't see the benefits of that directly in classrooms, though, and they would argue that an entire generation is growing up in underfunded schools right now. So it's my understanding that
Sorry, I just want to move it back to normal speed because it's important to hear her question. Because it's like, yeah, all this stuff, like how is a new convention center going to help the fact that children aren't getting access to the education that they need?
wouldn't see the benefits of that directly in classrooms, though, and they would argue that an entire generation is growing up in underfunded schools right now. So it's my understanding that the upcoming budget isn't going to include a major funding boost for K-12 schools. Why isn't your government considering that?
Well, again, can I maybe offline get all the media in one room, and we're going to inform them? We're going to show budget 2018, 2019, all the way.
Actually, I would love that. I would love that.
Way through, And do you want to go at it? Because I know he's gnawing at the bit right now. He watches line item by line item, but what you're misleading the people. And it's your responsibility as a media to tell the truth. You're misleading the people.
So here he is just accusing them of lying, saying that the media is the one misleading the people. Not Doug Ford, the known proven liar, but the media who's just trying to get questions and answers and accuracy from him and point out sore spots. The media is the one that's misleading. Not Doug Ford, of course. Never Doug Ford.
When you say funding is going down, I will personally bring you in my office with the Minister of Finance, and we're going to go line by line, and then you're going to be able to go out there and tell the people accurate figures.
If that's the case, then do it. Do it, Dougie. Get some reputable people from the media, like Tina, who you're talking to right now, and do that. Go line by line. Because that's the thing that we actually want is more information. So do that, Dougie. Do that. Take her into your office and go through the budget line by line, and see how well that works out in your favor. But the thing is that that's one of the tricks he does is he'll say things like this, but there's never any follow through. There's never any intention of actually doing the thing. But when he says it like this, it comes across as confident. Like, I'm so confident that we could sit down and do this, which, to people who aren't paying attention, they hear something like that and they're like, oh, well, I guess he does have the budget, kind of under control. And anyone who's paying even a smidgen amount of attention to politics would know that's not the case. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who will only ever hear sound bites. And they don't understand where their money is going. They don't understand why their lives are getting worse. Because they don't understand. This has probably been one of the worst governments we've had, at least in my lifetime.
So I'll hand it over to either one of you.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks, and sadly, the Hungarian baseball team.
So a little bit more on that $750 spending card for supplies. And this is from Global News, Colin DeMello.
Well, Jaden, the Premier has been talking about the idea of giving frontline education workers, teachers specifically in classrooms, a purchasing card so they can buy classroom supplies. The Premier says the idea came from a visit that he'd had to a Dollarama in which he saw a frontline teacher buying classroom supplies and paying out of the pocket. The Premier seemed to see that as something of an injustice, even though that has been happening within the education system, educators say, for a while now. But in this provincial budget set to be delivered on March 26, the government will be paying about $66 million for these. These are $750 a pop classroom supply cards, and they'll be handed out to frontline teachers in elementary classrooms. The Ford government.
So not all teachers, just some frontline teachers in elementary schools. So, all the high school students that need supplies, they're as well.
Says those teachers can use it to order things like arts and crafts materials, stations.
The thing is that a lot of the things that the teachers are buying should already be provided to school boards in schools. Like, this shouldn't be something that a teacher has to take time out of their day to go on and order and try to guess what is needed. That shouldn't be part of their job. This should already be in place when it comes to supplies that you need in the classroom. That should already be in place. That should not be a burden of the teachers to have to get.
Stationery and other paper products, posters and classroom decor, and also they can use it for paper towels and tissues. The Ford government says one of the reasons they're doing this from a central level and not school board by school board is because they want to run the program through Supply Ontario so they can use the province's purchasing power to buy all of these products in bulk and at once.
He doesn't know what kind of orders are going to come in. So what, you place the order and hope that eventually it shows up?
A lot of teachers say that the platform that they go to right now to buy supplies is far more expensive than if they were just to go to Walmart or Dollarama and buy that. So what we are going to do is bring the purchasing power of the entire...
Should have never been on the teachers to have to buy it in the first place.
province of Ontario together, offer more, offer it at a lot less cost, and let teachers go online for themselves to buy what they need for their classrooms.
Premier Doug Ford said a lot of this money had been going to the classrooms anyway, but it wasn't necessarily getting to frontline teachers to spend on the items they needed for education. This is $66 million out of the provincial budget. The government says it will be a yearly classroom fund. And while it's only for elementary teachers for now, the province is saying that this is just a start. High school teachers will likely get cut into this deal as well.
So just a little bit more from the article. That. So the response from education unions representing teachers was skeptical, with Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario suggesting the move could be designed to buy its members ahead of contract talks. Yes, this is like what he did when, he saved drivers $200 for renewing their license plate. This is just like, I'm going to try to buy your votes with something that's very superficial and doesn't actually fix the problem. For years, educators have spent hundreds of dollars of their own money to ensure students have what they need. If the government is finally acknowledging this reality, it's long overdue, Union President David Matson said in a statement. The real issue that needs addressing is the government's ongoing refusal to address the chronic underfunding that forces educators to subsidize classrooms out of their own pockets in the first place. Martha Hardway, president of the Ontario Secondary Schools Teachers Federation, was equally lukewarm in her reception. It's like handing a firefighter a check and telling them to buy a hose before they show up to put out a fire, she wrote in a statement. The real solution is properly funding schools so the resources students and educators need are already there. The government said the new website will offer supplies for elementary teachers grade by grade, which will then be delivered directly to the schools. Calandra said he would consult with teachers to work out what supplies are needed to stock the website. He confirmed the current policy, which only targets elementary schools and teachers, was a start, and we heard that. Now, I haven't found anything. I was digging into this because if we go back to here, it's just an odd coincidence that Doug Ford now wants to infill part of Lake Ontario after, going to a conference with a whole bunch of corporations for sandstone and gravel. Some people have pointed out, but I don't know. I haven't been able to find any concrete evidence, but it is worth noting, I think, that this is just another way for him to line the pockets of one of his corporate buddies. Because for some of you who watch my channel regularly, you know that the Service Ontario, that's where we go to get our license plates and other kind of provincial government ID stuff. A lot of those locations were closed, putting a lot of people out of work. And then kiosks were being opened in Staples. Because Doug Ford had some relationship with the corporation of Staples. So who's going to be getting these $750 cards from the teachers? Who's supplying the supplies? Could it possibly be Staples? And this is basically then just another wealth transfer to one of his corporate buddies? You see, I find a lot of this, it's never just coincidence with Doug Ford. That everything he does is to protect himself, tit for tat, protect his wealthy buddies. This isn't meant to benefit the teachers. It's meant to benefit him and his crew somehow. Because again, I have yet to see him do something that is sincerely just to improve the lives of people in Ontario. The only things that come close, like I said, is getting rid of the cost to renew the license plate. But that was because he was just trying to buy our votes. And a lot of people got bought. But it wasn't because he wanted to make our lives better, because the reality is not having to pay that. Yeah, sure, I appreciate it. But it doesn't make my situation better. It's not concretely better in any way. I still live in dire poverty because he hasn't done anything with disability. Healthcare is still a bit of a struggle. He hasn't made my life better. And I think the vast majority of people in Ontario can say that. So speaking of how much he actually cares about those teachers, Frank Dominic is pointing out the Ford government just laid off over 300 teachers in Peel. This comes just a few weeks after they took over the school board, citing concerns that 60 teachers may be laid off due to funding shortages from the Conservative government. So again, those $750 cards are just meant to distract the teachers. Well, 300 get laid off when it was maybe going to be 60. And this is after, again, Doug Ford has taken over school boards. So people who used to be elected into positions are now being replaced by people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for a minuscule amount of work. Yet the people who used to be elected into those positions made a tiny fraction of that amount. This isn't about the teachers. It's about defunding education and eventually working towards privatizing it.
The Ford government just laid off over 300 teachers in Peel. And let me tell you the most insane part of this. Back in January, the Ford government warned the Peel board that they had to be taken over. The government had to supervise the board to prevent teachers from being laid off, with Minister Paul Calandra putting the board under supervision to prevent dozens of teachers from being laid off. And according to the Minister of Education, they were about to lay off 60 teachers, which would have affected 1,400 students. And to the Ford government, this was unacceptable, which is why a month and a half later, it is totally acceptable for the Ford government to lay off over 300 teachers. The scale, scope, and timing of this type of layoff is literally unheard of in Ontario education. Teachers do not get laid off in March. When teachers get surplus notices, it is not until way later in the year. And the scale of these types of cuts is massive, because this is over 3 times what the union and the board had expected. It was expected that there were going to be surplus notices this year. They knew because of the enrollment and because of the funding from the government, this was going to happen. But the scale to which the Conservative appointed supervisor had cuts at this time of year is unprecedented and shocking. And a reminder, the government took over this board to prevent 60 teachers from being surplused. Or at least that was their excuse, because now this is sounding a bit like a goddamn lie. Just like how it's a lie that they're taking over school boards because these school boards are mismanaged. Multiple school boards have been taken over even though they have balanced budgets. And multiple school boards have been audited, all of which have found that they are not financially irresponsible. And any issues in the budget come from the fact that the provincial Ford Conservative government is underfunding schools. This is disgusting and reprehensible. This is Paul Calandra and Doug Ford's Ontario. And it's only going to get worse from here.
Yep. Defund, wreck the system so that he can then privatize it. And privatizing education, healthcare has been proven over and over in so many different places to just wreck the systems, to make things worse for everyone. The only people who benefit are the people who are, part of the corporations, part of the 1%. But the average person does not benefit from privatization. The average person suffers under it. Canada, generally speaking, has a really good high education rate, and this is just going to destroy it. We need more teachers, not laying off 300 in one region. So a little bit of a scandal that happened recently that I don't think too many people know about, but it's a pretty big breach of security. Ontario government home care vendor paid ransom to regain access to its servers, says a report. So a lot of people's private data got hacked. And then, the hackers demanded a ransom be paid in order for them to get that information back. This is a little bit disconcerting that this can happen. And then the government drags their feet, as you will see by the timeline on this, in trying to correct this.
It's been called a significant data breach, impacting hundreds of thousands of home care patients.
Nearly 1/3, at least, of all home care patients in Ontario have had their personal health information violated and they were not informed for 3.5 months.
Now, part of the reason why this is really, really dangerous is these people, again, they weren't notified for 3.5 months. So there were some shady, dark organizations out there that had this information that at that time could then be scamming a lot of these people because they have the private information. So they call up and they say, hey, we know you have this medical equipment. They know their name, they know their address, all of that information. Oh yeah, we have this new model available and you just need to send us this money in order to get it. So the amount of fraud and scams that could potentially have happened to these people is completely outrageous. And the fact that they weren't told for 3.5 months meant that that entire time they didn't know to be a little bit more skeptical of a call like that. They had no reason to doubt it. Whereas if they had been told right away, like they're supposed to, and then got that call, they could be like, yeah, no, there's something wrong here.
Now, the Ford government is facing questions about why it took so long for those patients to be notified, a question even the Premier seems to be wondering.
We'll find out where the gap is and why it wasn't brought to our attention a lot earlier.
Here's the timeline so far. Around March 17th, a vendor that distributes medical supplies to home care patients experienced a data breach. 2.5 months later, on May 30th, the Ford government informed the Information and Privacy Commissioner about the breach. Nearly 1 month later, on June 27th, Liberal MPP Adil Shamji publicly revealed details of the breach, triggering a flurry of government action.
So it wasn't until an MPP from a different party decided to shine a light on it that the Conservative government decided it's like, oh yeah, I guess we better actually look after this, huh?
At 10 o'clock that morning, Health Minister Sylvia Jones quickly confirmed the breach.
Ontario Health and Ontario Health at Home will notify if there has been any form of breach to individual patients, but that investigation is going on right now.
Hours later, at 3:45, Minister Jones then ordered Ontario's home care agency to immediately begin notifying patients. And roughly 15 minutes later, the agency, Ontario Health at Home, confirmed the scope of the breach, including names, contact information, and medical supplies that were ordered were all breached.
That timeline makes it clear that 2.5 months elapsed between the data breach and the Information and Privacy Commissioner being notified by Ontario Health at Home.
Provincial law states that once a data breach has occurred, the government must take immediate action.
This should all be fireable offenses. Sylvia Jones should be fired for this. I misspoke when I said 3.5 months earlier. It was 2.5 months, but everything else I said around that holds. She needs to be fired. There's supposed to be an immediate action when this is found out. And so that she could warn all the people who have this equipment and stuff that, you know what, if you get contacted in the near future, it might be a scam because your information has been stolen.
And notify individuals at the first reasonable opportunity.
What excuse is there for such a profound delay in notification?
The government has yet to answer what caused the delay. Months after the breach occurred, the province has now set up a website and a hotline allowing those home care patients to inquire about their data at Queen's Park.
So speaking of healthcare and how it's crumbling and all that sort of stuff and how Doug Ford is actively working to make the life of people worse in this province. So this is from Yiping. I've covered this extensively on this channel, the closure of supervised consumption sites, even though it's not something I've personally ever had to use, but I can understand the need of it, like through a mental health context of how, you know, sometimes it can take a lot of time and a lot of different types of treatment in order for somebody to recover. And, you know, a lot of people will go to these supervised consumption sites because they don't have any other safe place to go to consume the drugs that they've previously bought somewhere else. And do it in a place where if something goes wrong, there's people there to help versus doing it in a back alley, doing it in the bushes somewhere far away from people because for whatever reason, they can't do it at home and there's nowhere else for them to do it. And since he has closed those supervised consumption sites, overdoses have climbed. Well, he wants to close even more. So Yiping Jean is just pointing out here, yesterday the Ontario government gave notice to all publicly funded supervised consumption sites that their funding will be cut after 90 days and thus will be forced to cease operations on June 13th, 2026. So before it was just, ones that are so close to a school or a daycare or whatever. Despite the fact that he made alcohol far more accessible, including in corner stores and gas stations across the street from high schools and daycares and stuff. So, a lot of those high school students could potentially, get those little fake IDs or something, go into convenience stores, get all the alcohol they want. Yeah, it's one substance for another. He's just substituting a substance that is considered legal, but is also extraordinarily harmful for these other supervised consumption sites that was keeping people safe. So Yiping says, as a family doctor, I understand the important work of harm reduction as treatment and the importance of other treatment services for substance use. Supervised consumption sites operate on a harm reduction approach with primary goal of keeping people alive and preventing overdose deaths. They allow people to use previously obtained drugs under the supervision of healthcare workers. They provide sterile supplies, overdose prevention and management, as well as low barrier access to other health and social service support services. Some sites also offer drug checking services to determine whether the patient's drugs have been laced with toxic substances. All of this is essential and medically necessary healthcare for people who use drugs. Now, Doug Ford will say, these sites just encourage people to use drugs. And it's like, no, the conditions that Doug Ford is making in this province with so many more people going unhoused, so many people not getting the health care that they need, the cost of living just skyrocketing, the despair people are feeling, that's causing a massive increase in drug use. People who turn to it to self-medicate for despair or for other conditions that they might be having. It is a societal problem. And one of the few things that we had that was helping people, just helping them get past one day and another day and another day until they could finally reach the day where they're ready and able to, and in the proper environment to get the help that they need. So many people have lost their lives because of this, that had they been able to go to one of these sites, could be alive today, and who knows, maybe next year, 5 years down the road, would stop using these substances and have their mental health care taken care of, and be on track for a much better life. All of that's been taken away from them. So he says, having worked with patients who access safe consumption sites, I know this is a life-saving health care service. This decision to withdraw all public funding for supervised consumption sites is a death sentence to likely many patients and people who have accessed these services. Harm reduction saves lives. The Ontario government decision to cut all public funding for supervised consumption sites in the province is a deadly policy decision that will result in more deaths from overdoses. Supervised consumption sites are a healthcare service for people who use drugs. To deny and defund medically necessary healthcare services in the toxic drug crisis environment is abhorrent and deeply unjust. And Diana Chan McNally is also pointing out, and she's a community worker and advocate, saying none of us know what a heart hub is. So Doug Ford is saying all these consumption sites are being replaced by these heart hubs. Now, in principle, I'm not against a heart hub as one of many options, because in order to access one of these heart hubs, you need to be completely drug-free. And for a lot of people, they can't just stop. They can't just cut themselves off. But, you know, for some people who are at that phase in the recovery, then a heart hub would be helpful, sure. But that can't be the only solution, because then it also leads to maybe forced treatment. And anyone who's been put through forced treatment, it doesn't help them. They go through the system, they get better. All the boxes are checked for their recovery. But then as soon as they go back out, unless the environment that caused them to turn to drugs in the first place has been fixed, they'll end up right back in the same place. And often, a lot of people end up overdosing rather quickly because the tolerance that their system had been building up is no longer there. And so they go back to the amount of drugs that they were using right before they went in. And that's now too much. It's too much of a shock to their system. Diana is just pointing out, like, where are these heart hubs? Like, does anyone know of anyone who's actually going to one of these heart hubs? Do they actually exist yet? Because she's quote tweeting from Laura Stone, who's another reporter, saying Ontario formally announces plans to wind down provincial funding for 7 remaining supervised drug use sites, 2 in Toronto, Ottawa, and all that, with homelessness, and will be replaced with homeless and addiction recovery treatment, the heart hubs. And she's saying, none of us know what a heart hub is, and Doug Ford won't clarify their model or what they do. None of the housing associated with heart hubs is online, and there is a growing worry that these hubs will become the architecture of forced treatment. Now, I looked through a couple articles, and I'm not entirely sure how many sites are at risk right now, because some are saying 3, some are saying 7. Because this article here from CBC is saying the Ontario government says it will end funding for at least 3 provincially funded drug consumption sites, and it's drawing concern, versus this Toronto Today saying the government confirmed Monday it's cutting provincial funding for 7 supervised drug consumption sites. The reality is Doug Ford's going for all of them. He is. He's going to go for all of them. He wants all of them shut down, but the heart hubs he keeps on bragging about, that is the cure, from everything I've seen so far, don't actually exist yet. And it only helps a small number of people who use these supervised consumption sites. It in no way would accommodate the amount of people needed. Because this is, you go to a treatment center, you have a room there, you're cut off from society, all that sort of stuff, which again, I'm not necessarily against if you're at that point in your recovery, but for a lot of people, this is not a good system for them. It is not practical, and it does not help them at all. So heart hub should be done in conjunction with supervised consumption sites. So I will be following this as it happens and talking about the ones that end up getting closed. But this is Doug Ford just saying he's okay with people who use drugs dying. That's it. He doesn't care about certain types of people in this province, and he doesn't care what happens to them. And the results show. Overdoses have drastically increased since these supervised consumption sites, the ones that he has already closed. He's going for all of them. But Doug Ford, when it comes down to it, he makes laws fast when they're for him. So last month I covered this because Doug Ford was whining, complaining that on Family Day, a statutory holiday, he went to a Home Depot and it was closed. So it was inconvenient for him. So just like that, he passed a law to make it so that shopping centers can stay open on some of the holidays he wants them to stay open on. So it's Family Day and Victoria Day. Some laws take forever to pass. But when it benefits him in the slightest because he was put off by the fact that he couldn't go to Home Depot on the very exact day he wanted to go, passed a law so that people who normally would be able to get the day off work now are expected to go in. From Global News, Ford government to allow shopping on 2 public holidays across Ontario. Ford government is set to allow retailers across the province to open their doors to shoppers on Family Day and Victoria Day, Global News has learned after the Premier expressed frustration about major malls being closed on provincial holidays. During the recent Family Day long weekend, Ford said he was inundated with calls from so many people wanting to go to shopping malls. I'm sure. Well, maybe if we had his cell phone records, we would know that for sure. And questioned why major shopping centres, including Toronto's Sherway Gardens and Yorkdale Mall, were closed. At the time, Ford appeared unsure. The fact that he's bitching about people being able to spend time with their family on Family Day when they should be in the malls working to accommodate his shopping needs. Again, it's so out of touch with what average people are going through. So at the time, Ford appeared unsure whether he would change the law, but promised to consult with retail council along with retail giants such as Walmart, Loblaw, Shoppers Drug Marts, and Home Depot. Yes, he'll consult with the giants. Is he going to consult with the employees? Or the people who would use these places? Is he going to consult with them? No. So he's just saying, yeah, I know it would add to our GDP and, keep people working and all that sort of stuff. So it took less than a month for Ford's musing to become reality. Global News has learned that during an early morning cabinet meeting on Thursday, the government approved a plan to allow province-wide shopping on Family Day and Victoria Day. While it's unclear why the government settled on those 2 days, the province would have to amend the existing law to allow for the change. Currently, Retail Business Holidays Acts forbid shopping on New Year's Day, Good Friday, Victoria Day, Canada Day, and other holidays here. Family Day isn't enshrined in that law, but it is designated as a holiday in the Employment Standards Act, which means employees are entitled to enhanced wages. So Ford's interest in changing the law appears to be driven by the Greater Toronto Area, as most things are with him. He really only cares about dictating what happens to Toronto. He doesn't care so much about the rest of the province. And let's see. And again, Colin DeMello is getting a little spicy with Doug Ford. Especially with Doug Ford trying to get rid of the Freedom of Information requests, being able to do that, so preventing Colin from doing his job. He's getting just a little bit more spicy with his reporting. And so here he says the Ford government confirms our story that it will allow stores and malls to open on Family Day and Victoria Day. By the way, the Ontario legislature is currently on extended Christmas break, December 12th to March 23rd. The legislature also takes breaks on stat holidays. MPPs voted to give themselves a raise and a pension last year. He's just, he wants to remind people that these government officials that are taking away 2 holidays from hardworking people are on an extended break, Christmas break that lasts for months. And they get so many more breaks. Their summer break, super long as well. And they also get to choose when they get raises. Those are the people who've decided, you know what? Those plebs that work in these malls that we want to go shop at, they don't need that time off. And if they are so desperate that they will work those holidays because they're in need of those wages, then that's also just, an indication that maybe they're not getting paid enough in the first place. That maybe the minimum wage needs to be raised in this province drastically. So yeah, Colin DeMello getting a little spicy. I like it. Him and Tina, they're both getting a lot more spicy with Doug Ford. And I like it. I like when the press holds their government officials accountable. So that is it for that docket. And next we're going to get into the Freedom of Information stuff that I have been talking about and how Doug Ford is going to make it so that we can't do that anymore for him because he is desperately trying to hide stuff. But let's check the SandBox. We've had Morbius join us. Pup Tetris and Silas. Welcome. Super appreciate it. So the Nico Astum emotes are so cute. I don't know what those are, but little kitty cats in boxes are cute. And it's kind of suiting for my channel. I was thinking at one point that in my logo, I would make it like somehow indicate that there was a cat in the box, but then it's like, that's two Schrodinger's. Is that how you say it? Schrodinger's cat? I'm like, I don't want people being like, so is the cat dead or alive? You know? So I didn't want that type of thing kind of put into play with the logo, but I thought it would have been cute to have like a paw come out of the box every now and then or something. But yeah, because of the other existing thing that is far more well known than my channel, I don't think that's something I'm going to do. But I hope everyone is doing well. It's a crazy time to be covering news these days. And I also decided to do an extra live stream on a night where most people are off doing other things because a whole bunch of leftists will be doing other content. Because something about midterms in the United States right now that a lot of people are following closely and so on and so forth. And other content creators that normally stream this time. And yeah, sometimes I don't pick the best times, but you know, it is what it is. I was thinking of doing it yesterday, but then I thought I had plans. I thought I had plans. I didn't actually have plans. So I could have done this yesterday, and it probably would have been better to do this yesterday, but I was saying on Sunday, I'm doing it today. And so here I am doing it today. Of course, I even started an hour earlier than what I was saying on Sunday, because I want to get this done sooner in the evening so I can unwind afterwards. And then hopefully there'll be some other leftist channels going live that I can raid, because it's always nice to get that shout out. You know, it's nice. It's nice to let them know that it's like, hey, I'm sending my audience over to you. Yeah, I'm still getting over my cold. If I wake up multiple times over the night and coughing fits again tonight, I'll be calling my doctor tomorrow to make an appointment, because I'll probably need to get an inhaler. I've had to do that before after colds just to help clear out my lungs. But, you know, life goes on. I have to keep on going. And I worked a little bit on my TYT essay today. It takes a while because I sit there and I stare at the screen because I'm trying to figure out, like, how am I wording this? Or how am I connecting these things that I have? Because, like, I have all these different montages for so many different things and all these different points I want to cover. But it's a matter of trying to line them up in a narrative that makes sense. Like in a flow, in an order of operation that makes sense. And so sometimes I'll be sitting there like, I know this should come next, but how? How does this come next? I know it should because it's related and it leads into it, but how exactly do I connect it? And so that takes a bit of time. But then once I figure it out, it's like, good, I figured it out. And then today I was looking for a montage because it's like, I know I have this montage somewhere. And then I was checking like all my files and stuff, and I finally found it. And it was part of a larger montage that I had named differently. I'm like, oh, that's why. It's split in half, get the part that I want. And then I check my notes, and literally on the montage that it was part of, I have over to the side that broken up. I'm like, I could have just saw that and knew exactly where it was. Because the thought of having to remake some of these montages is just a hard no. Because there is so many different clips in such small montages. So having to go back through a gazillion videos just to find Jenk saying, you know, a handful of words. It's like, no. Not to mention, like in the montages that I've already made, I've already kind of arranged it in the way that I want as well. So then I'd have to figure that out again. Because, you know, I want it arranged in such a way that it's punchy and could be a bit fun to listen to. But yeah, just a lot of work. A lot of work is going into this. But my God, if people were impressed with Mike Figueiredo's recent video, you should be impressed with what I'm doing. The amount of clips that I've put together from so many different sources, so many different timelines, so many relevant connections and stuff. Whew. I seriously doubt I will ever get paid the worth that these essays will be worth, but I would hope, at least for my regular viewers, that you'd be like, damn, that was good. Because reality is, I'm never going to get back what it's worth, the amount of work and energy and time that I've put into it. Unless, I were to get like 1 million subscribers type thing. But I think in the future, it's a good documentation too of the path TYT has taken, because it really does show some before and afters in very, very stark contrast. And it's going to be a walk down memory lane, because there's been so many things that happened with Jank and Hannah over the past couple years that some of them have just been memory hold, that when you see them again, it's like, oh, right, I forgot. I was mad about this too. So there's going to be a lot of that. Anyway, why don't we just continue to scooch through this? Because again, I don't want this to be a terribly long live stream. And Looney Tunes isn't in the sandbox to be like, hey, can you make it like 5 hours? Because no. And Looney Tunes would probably really appreciate being in this live stream today, because I'm sure there's something about my shirt he'd probably appreciate. I don't know what it could be. Not at all. Not at all. But for all of you watching, I'm sure, yeah. I'll flaunt it while I have it. Because as I'm working out, these are going to go away. Yeah. So let's get back to the news that I've put together for you all. So here, I need to change, because I'm capturing the screen I'm capturing the actual element as opposed to capturing the screen, which I used to do. And that was problematic, because then if there was a pop-up or anything of that sort, you would see it. But since I'm capturing the window, you don't see that. So I can hover over the next tab and it drops down so I can see what it is, but then you're not seeing what it is. So then it can still surprise you. Or if I hover over all my little icons at the bottom that show all the documents and stuff that I have open, it's not going to pop up and you see like, oh, what is this Nazi folder of yours? And the thing is that if you were to see some of the notes that I have on the TYT thing, it would kind of look like that. I sometimes wonder how confused the algorithm is when I go to search things and it's like, but you were searching for all this like right-wing stuff and now you're searching for all this left-wing stuff. Like, they can't make any sense of it. They can't make any sense of it. If there was like a word bubble, what are those word field things of things that I've like put into my scripts and stuff like that? It would just be very, very bizarre, I think. So this leads into the FOI thing, because Doug Ford loves to claim to be the government of transparency. They're the most transparent government ever, he keeps on saying, just like Donald Trump would. The similarities between the two are just so extreme. Like, even the way that they talk about themselves in the third person is so weird. So weird. And they both do it. This is an example here of the most transparent provincial government ever. From Global News, Moving Metrics, how the Ford government pulled back reporting its successes and failures. Literally, the courts have already ruled that these cell phone records need to be turned over, and he's not doing it. There has been zero accountability for all the horrendous shit he's doing. But the fact that he's making a law about this so that he can hide it means that there has to be things in it so blatantly corrupt that it would actually mean him and his buddies would go to jail. That there would just be no way his cop buddies would be able to turn away from it. That it is just so bad that, there'd be pitchforks in the streets type thing for him to make a law that would hide these records.
The decision is being met with disbelief.
Well, this is bullshit. I'll start by saying that.
That was a really weird camera zoom in. Ugh. They accidentally hit the zoom button there.
Disbelief.
Well, this is bullshit. I'll start by saying that.
From opposition parties who argue the government is only protecting itself.
So we're kind of wondering which one of these requests, or of your many FOI requests, was it that triggered the government so much that they're going to change the laws to hide their own corruption.
Even Ontario's Information and Privacy Commissioner is critical of the government, calling it a shocking announcement that undermines the principles of transparency. The Ford government is making another change that could frustrate the new FOI system. Currently, the government has to respond to an FOI request in 30 calendar days. The government is changing that to make it 45 business days, making it slower for journalists and the public to get access to the information they request. I'm Colin DeMello. Now back to you.
I don't think there was anything else in this article that we needed to go over because it was all pretty much there, but there's still more videos and stuff I wanted to touch on. So this one, we're not going to watch the full 7.5 minute long video, but there was stuff at the beginning and the end that I wanted to share because it's important. And so again, from Colin DeMello, Focus Ontario, the Ford government's changes to the FOI system are being called shocking, a means to undermine the court's ruling into his private cell phone. Global's Isaac Callan breaks it down.
You're watching Focus Ontario on Global.
You better not give me a copyright thing for doing a Focus Ontario thing. I'm just saying. Just saying. This is what's that word? When you're using it for a reason. Oh fuck, what's the word? There's a word for using other content. Fair use. Yeah, this is completely fair use.
Significant overhaul to a key transparency tool used by journalists to inform you about what the government is doing behind the scenes. The Ford government announced on Friday that the freedom of information laws in this province will be changed. Premiers, ministers, and their offices will now all be shielded from the law, which means their communications about government matters will be permanently blocked from public access. This also means existing transparency battles with the Ford government will also be neutralized. I'm going to bring in Global's Isaac Callan now. Isaac leads our FOI requests into the Ontario government. Isaac, so the current FOI system obviously allows us to request documents and communications in ministers' offices to determine just how governments arrive at a decision. What's changing here?
And then I would do the salute, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today. And the hidden half.